3 spine-chilling and terrifying Christmas horror stories you never knew were true and cursed. Emily sat alone in the dim light of her flickering candles, the warmth of their glow feeling like the last breath of dying hope. Outside, the blizzard howled like a trapped animal, clawing at the windows with freezing fingers, while inside her heart raced. It was Christmas Eve, and all she could think about was what was lurking beyond the comforting glow of her lights. The only thing louder than the wind was the relentless ticking of her clock, each tick reminding her of the emptiness that surrounded her. Jake and Lily were at their grandmother's house, filling their hearts with joy and wonder, and somewhere in the depths of her mind, an anxious whisper taunted her. Why aren't they back yet? More than a parent waiting for the return of her children, she felt like a lone deer, sensing unseen predators watching from the shadows. Then her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts with a jolt. An unknown number flashed ominously on the screen. She hesitated, but the primal curiosity bubbled like bile in her throat. She opened the message, only to find a message that chilled her. "Are you watching?" It seemed harmless at first, just a prank. But then the other messages rolled in, each more unsettling than the last. "The Johnsons' Haven Tea hosted dinner for years. Mr. Clark has a history of strange disappearances." Each text added another layer of creeping dread, turning her familiar neighborhood into a sinister landscape. She turned back to the stove, her hands trembling as she tried to focus on cooking a simple dinner. What were they talking about? Dismissing it as an overactive imagination, she convinced herself it was just late-night fatigue. "It's nothing," she muttered under her breath, but panic was curling like smoke in her chest. But when the final message hit her with the impact of a brick check on the old Miller house, her heart fell like a stone into a dark abyss. Memories clawed at her. The boy who went missing, a tragedy that had gone cold, leaving nothing but whispers of ghost stories and rumors of shadows moving in the night. The hairs on her neck prickled, each whisper from the past echoing like a death knell. Suddenly, the wind howled louder, and in that terrible moment, Emily knew terror. She rushed to check the clock. Time felt suspended, each tick a reminder that her children were out there, somewhere in the storm. Were they safe? She fought against terrifying thoughts, only to feel the texts taunting her some more about a twisted Christmas spirit that fed off innocence. The tales from her own childhood bled into her reality, feeding off of her fear. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A gust of wind blasted through the slightly ajar door, making the candles flicker wildly. Then a soft knock pierced the growing dread. Her breath hitched. When she opened the door, it revealed her children, bundled in their winter gear. And beside them stood a boy with hollow eyes and an unsettling smile. "We made a friend," Jake yelled, his voice bright against the bleakness of the night. Emily's heart sank. A knot of apprehension twisted tighter in her stomach. The stranger's eyes, strangely vacant yet gleeful, glistened like ice, giving her the sense that he didn't belong. He reached for the Christmas cookies, and when Lily giggled, his whisper carried an air of something old and dark. In that moment, a chilling truth reared its head. The neighborhood's darkness had begun to seep into her home with this unfamiliar boy, leaving her trapped between holiday cheer and unfathomable fear. As shadows deepened around them, Emily felt the palpable tension in the air. Something was deeply wrong. The sound of laughter echoed eerily against the wind, as if Christmas had become a nightmarish canvas painted with the colors of her greatest fears. And as that final whisper lingered, "Are you ready to unwrap your Christmas surprise?" The question hung heavy in the air, a dreadful reminder that salvation or doom was just a breath away. Emily swallowed hard as the boy's unsettling smile broadened. Every instinct screamed at her to send him away. "Who are you?" she asked, forcing the words out, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. I'm Simon, he chirped, excitement bubbling through his hollow demeanor. The way he said his name sent a chill down her spine, a name she felt resonated with something long buried in the dark corners of her memory. She could almost hear her grandmother's warnings whispering through the wind. Come inside, Jake. Lily, she urged, her voice strained. We need to get warm. But the fear in her heart didn't let go of her mind. Was he real? Was he safe? The shadows crept closer as the blizzard howled outside, growing impatient for whatever dark deed it promised to claim. As they moved inside, Emily tried to shake off the feeling that something was terribly off about Simon. She forced a smile, glancing down at Jake and Lily. Their faces glowed with excitement, yet deeper within their gaze, an unsettling flicker lingered. What did you two do out there? Simon said he knows fun games. Lily squealed, her giggle chiming sweetly amid the chaos, but it echoed like glass shattering in Emily's ears. Games? Emily was already regretting the question. She followed Simon into the living room, where he plopped down on the floor, his hands darting eagerly toward the toys. Jake and Lily joined him, but their movements felt unnatural, almost like marionettes under Simon's spell. With every cheer and laughter that filled the space, Emily felt a tightening in her chest. Shadows from the flickering candles seemed to stretch and distort the walls, creeping ever closer. And then she remembered the last text. The Miller house. The ominous words threaded through her mind, dark and insistent. Let us play a game, Simon, Jake said, his tone too enthusiastic, too pleading. What kind of game? Hide and seek. Simon's laughter rang like the sound of brittle leaves crunching underfoot. But there are special rules. Emily tensed. What rules? She didn't like the sudden change in the atmosphere, as if the warmth of the room had turned to ice. Whoever is seeking must find the lost, Simon exclaimed, spinning around maliciously, eyes gleaming unnaturally bright. Even the air thickened around them, each breath carrying a weight that felt alive. Lost? What do you mean? There are echoes in this house. Emily, Simon replied, his voice low, almost hypnotic. They want to play too. They need new friends to help them remember. The way he looked at her clawed at her sanity. The hairs on her arms stood up as an audible silence enveloped them. Echoes? Friends? In that moment, Emily recoiled, caught in the icy web of a truth she instinctively feared. It's just a game, Jake insisted, laughing. But the innocence in his eyes dulled. Shadows deepened across his face. Without thinking, Emily turned to the door. No, we're not playing any games. Just let us sit with some hot cocoa. But before she could move, Simon stood up, blocking her path with an unnatural agility. But you have to play, Emily. His voice dropped, now a sinister whisper that sent shivers down her spine. Or your children will become lost too. Forever. Clarity crashed through her like a wild wave. Fear pinched her heart. Were Simon's games merely an innocent plea, or something much darker? She locked eyes with him, feeling the desperation boiling inside her chest. And as the blizzard raged on outside, she prepared to confront whatever darkness had lain in wait inside her very home. Because the awful truth was becoming painfully clear. They weren't safe not just from the storm, but from the boy with hollow eyes. Please don't, Emily whispered, clinging to hope as shadows gathered around them, threatening to snuff out the last flickers of warmth. But who would hear her plea? Would anyone come to save them from this nightmare that had invaded her home? The clock ticked ominously in the background. As dread swelled in her throat, she realized with a sickening certainty that time was running out. And somewhere deep in the heart of that festering evil, she wondered, how do you escape the darkness when it's already infiltrated the light? Emily's heart raced as Simon stepped closer, his hollow eyes fixed on her. The air felt charged, the kind that suffocated you, pressing down until each breath became a struggle. Simon's smile widened, revealing teeth too white, too sharp, like a predator eyeing its prey. Let us play, he demanded, an edge of enthusiasm slicing through an eerie silence. The children echoed his desires, clapping their hands in manic glee. Every clap sent a tremor through Emily's core. Simon, how about a different game? Why don't you show us one of your secrets instead? She suggested, desperation pooling in her voice. Maybe if she kept him engaged, she could buy herself some time, some strange victory against whatever spell he had cast. But Simon merely tilted his head, as if considering a puzzle, before replying, secrets make the game much more fun. Emily, you don't want to miss out on the fun, do you? He glanced over his shoulder, his grin radiating an impending thrill, and Emily felt her skin crawl. Fun. Simon? She echoed, but the question sounded weak and hollow. The reality of her situation pierced through her like a shard of ice. They weren't just dealing with an unusual boy. They were tangled in something far darker. Something that had been waiting, lurking, and watching. Let us start small, he said. You have to count to 20. We'll hide. His voice danced like the flicker of candles, taunting and flickering between light and shadow. But remember, if you cannot find us, there could be dire consequences. Lily and Jake giggled, excitement bubbling in their youthful spirits. But there was a hollow ring to their laughter, a reminder that something was very wrong. Emily's resolve wavered as the children began to scatter, headed for corners of the house that suddenly seemed to stretch into darkness. Wait, she called, desperation clawing at her throat. It's okay, Mommy, Jake shouted from the hallway, his voice fading into the void as he disappeared behind a closed door. The walls felt thicker, more oppressive. As Emily turned to Simon, he was already standing at her side, waving her off. Count, he insisted, locking her with a gaze that sent icy tendrils spiraling down her spine. Taking a deep breath, she began to count 1, 2. The words felt heavy, as if each number dragged her further into the abyss. The world around her twisted, shadows elongated, pulled tighter against her. When she reached 10, the laughter of her children suddenly seemed to die, swallowed whole by the house. 10. Her voice dropped, a warning echoing in the air. Keep going, Simon urged, his impatience radiating like heat from a flame. The blizzard howled louder outside, swirling like a cacophony of lost souls pleading for escape. A chill lingered, creeping under her skin, whispering the unspeakable. 15. She could feel Simon's breath near her ear, a ghostly presence that made her skin prickle. The countdown had moved from playful to deadly. Can you feel them, Emily? Simon asked softly. They're watching. They're hiding, waiting for you to forget them. Tears stung her eyes, but she bit them back, pushing forward. 16, 17, faster. Simon hissed, suddenly too close, his presence darkening the light around her. Emily's skin crawled, as if the walls were contracting, inching closer to her. 18, 19. She lost her last shred of focus, a panic surging within her. Just as she reached for 20, darkness engulfed the corners of her vision, and in the silence, a whisper echoed. Find them. The word chilled her. Where are you, Jake? Lily? She screamed, fear bleeding through every syllable. The house remained silent, responding only with a deeper, bone-chilling silence. And somewhere from the depths of that silence, an answer returned, a haunting melody carried by the wind. The shadows writhed, consuming the corners of the room. And in that moment, Emily realized with gut-wrenching clarity something was urging her to uncover the horrific truth buried deep in the heart of the house. But as she stumbled forward, preparing to join the search for her children, a sinister thought crashed over her. What if the real game was not just about finding but losing? With a ferocious urgency, she gripped the nearest totem of warmth, a family photo. Smiling faces now a taunting reminder of what was at stake. The blizzard screamed louder outside, merging with the voices in her head. And somewhere, clinging to the edges of a nightmare, she sensed the presence of those forgotten lost souls whose laughter had been silenced, waiting to be found. The final echoes of her children's voices resonated through the house one last time, before plunging into the suffocating darkness around her. Tomorrow, she thought with chilling clarity, they would play for keeps. But would she be able to uncover the truth before the shadows of this cursed game claimed the last of her light? Emily felt the world shift around her as she stood in the suffocating silence, the echo of the last number still vibrating in the air. Her mind raced, caught in a whirlwind of thoughts and fears. Where had her children gone? The walls of the house felt like they were pulsing, their heartbeat in sync with her growing dread. "Jake! Lily!" she shouted, her voice shaking. The house responded only with a whispering wind that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, threading through the cracks in the walls like a serpent. Instinctively, she reached for the nearest door, a heavy wooden slab that led into the shadowed corridor where Jake had vanished. The door creaked open, revealing nothing but darkness. The chill that rushed out felt alive, wrapping itself around her limbs as she stepped inside. Each cautious footfall echoed, a stark contrast to the running laughter that had filled the air moments before. "Come on, kids," she pleaded, her voice wavering, a desperate call in a world gone cold. As she moved further into the hallway, images of childhood innocence flashed in her mind, her children playing hide and seek in the warm sun, their giggles dancing on the wind. Those moments felt far away now, shadows fading into something darker. A shift in the air made her shiver. She caught a glimpse of something in the corner of her eye, a fleeting figure darting into one of the rooms lining the hallway. "Lily," she called, hope flaring momentarily. It was quickly extinguished as she turned toward the room. The door slammed shut before she reached it, a hollow bang resonating like a death knell. Her heart pounded in her chest as she pressed her palm against the door. "Open up." The wood felt cold beneath her fingers, as if it was a barrier to something more than just a room. The shadows seemed to shift, writhing like they were alive and keeping secrets of their own. She could almost hear them whisper, but the words slipped away like sand through her fingers. Then, a sudden crash echoed from somewhere deeper in the house, a sound so jarring it split the silence wide open. "Jake!" Panic clawed at her throat as she tore down the hall, driven by a primal urge to find her children. With each step she took, the walls closed in, swallowing her cries. When Emily reached the end of the hallway, she paused, breathless, staring at a door slightly ajar. A pale light flickered within, casting an eerie glow that danced and shivered. She edged closer, every nerve ending screaming at her to run, but she couldn't. She had to know. As she pushed the door open, the sight inside made her stumble back. It was a room transformed, coated in a menacing light. Toys lay scattered across the floor, but they were not the innocent relics of childhood. They were twisted, grotesque representations of her children's laughter. Their eyes glazed over, lips stretched in silent screams. Shadows flickered and twisted, their shapes flickering in and out as if they were caught in a storm. "Mommy!" A voice shrieked from the depths of the darkness. Emily's heart lurched at the familiar sound. It was Jake. But as she stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind her, plunging her into total darkness. "Let them go," she shouted. "This isn't a game." Suddenly, the shadows swirled around her, pulling her in, gripping at her very essence. She could feel their cold fingers trailing across her skin, and the air thickened, each breath like inhaling shards of ice. From the corner of her eye, she spotted a flicker of movement, a figure trapped within the shadows, pleading, grappling for something she couldn't see. Emily, it was Simon, his voice a chilling whisper, laced with twisted glee. "You've arrived just in time. They're almost lost, but we can still play if you dare." Emily's heart sank as realization crashed over her. This was no ordinary game. It was a trap, one that wove her desperation into the fabric of this cursed house. Her thoughts raced, searching for a way to save her children. "What do you want?" she shouted into the darkness. A low, mocking laugh echoed around her, sending a tremor down her spine. "To find them, you must first lose everything." The walls seemed to close tighter, suffocating her hope under the weight of despair. Just when she thought all was lost, her heart skipped at a sudden blinding light erupting from the center of the darkness. It pulsed with life, a beacon of hope, but also a warning. Every instinct screamed for her to ignore it, yet something pushed her toward the light. Would it lead her to her children or seal their fate forever? Emily took a step forward, filled with equal parts terror and determination, racing toward the elusive glow that promised both salvation and doom. But there was no turning back now. What waited within that light twisted her gut with dread. And as she plunged forward, a promise lingered. Tomorrow's game hadn't just begun. What happened next would change everything, and the house, hungry for despair, was prepared to play for keeps. As Emily lunged into the blinding light, a scream escaped her lips, torn between terror and the flickering hope of finding her children. The warmth engulfed her, pulling her deeper into an unrecognizable realm. Instantly, everything shifted. The bright glow collapsed, leaving her in a vast, disorienting expanse of shadow. The air was thick. She couldn't breathe. Panic clawed at her chest, raking through her lungs. "Jake! Lily!" she shouted again, desperation tightening her throat. Silence answered her, deep and brooding, wrapping her in fear. Then, a shimmer appeared at the edge of her vision. Kaylee, a familiar figure from her past. Emily's heart raced as her little girl stepped forward, her hair wild, her face streaked with dirt. "Mommy, help!" she cried, her voice breaking like glass. "Kaylee." Emily reached out, but the little girl dissolved into the shadows, leaving only a lingering echo of her sobs. Terror flooded Emily's veins. Was this another cruel trick? More toys hidden in the dark? "Where are you?" She felt her legs trembling beneath her, her mind a battleground of fear and resolve. Shouts of her children lingered just beyond her grasp, weaving through the shadows that seemed to taunt her. The very walls pulsed, echoing her anguish. A sudden shift in the atmosphere made her freeze. The shadows began swirling again, like smoke caught in a gust of wind. Emily could hear whispers, a cacophony of voices intertwining. "Join us. Be one with the shadows." She stumbled backward, overwhelmed by the darkness threatening to consume her. "Get away from me!" she screamed, her heart drumming like a war cry in her chest. She thought of her children, trapped, lost. "This ends now." Drawing in a shaky breath, Emily clenched her fists, grounding herself in the memory of her children's laughter. With all the strength she could muster, she yelled, "I refuse to lose my family to you." The words hung in the air, trembling and heavy, floating into the darkness. For a moment nothing happened. Then the shadows recoiled, shrieking as if they were alive and wounded. Light flickered from deep within the darkness, a weak but defiant glow. With each pulse, the shadows squirmed, retreating from the warmth illuminating Emily's resolve. As she pressed forward, step by agonizing step, the whispers grew frenetic, mixing with a cacophony of laughter that felt both joyful and sinister. It morphed into a nasty parody of her children's giggles, twisting into something haunting. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath her, opening a gaping void. Emily's heart lurched as she fought to stay upright, desperately grasping for anything solid, clinging to the sliver of warmth she had found. "Mommy!" The voice, familiar yet distant, tore through the veil of shadows. Jake's anguished call surged like a lifeline. "Hold on, I'm coming," Emily shouted back, her voice steadying in that moment of sheer terror. But as she ran forward, the ground began to tremble violently, as if the house itself was alive and rebelling against her efforts. Just ahead, she glimpsed a small figure, clutching something bright and shiny. As she neared, the shadows surged, reaching toward her. The light flickered, threatening to fade, while the laughter grew louder, drowning her out. In a surge of panic, she dove. The air rushed past her, her heart hammering against her ribcage, but she could feel the threat behind her, seeking to grasp her. She leaped through the shadows, arms outstretched, ready to snatch her children from whatever nightmare held them captive. With just inches to spare, she reached the figure. "Jake!" But then her outstretched hands collided with something cold and unyielding. Without warning, the light went out entirely, plunging everything back into oppressive darkness. Every thread of hope felt severed as the cold shadows engulfed her once more. Emily's breath quickened. The house was alive, vibrant with malicious intent, and she could feel every heartbeat of it surrounding her like a noose. "Emily," a voice whispered. It was Simon again, closer now, the strong grip of shadows tightening around her. "It's almost time. You're sinking deeper into the darkness." Are you brave enough to truly play? With his unnerving laughter ricocheting in her mind, one question seared into her thoughts like a branding iron: could she use the shadows to find her children, or would she become one of the lost? As darkness closed in, Emily realized she was not finished fighting. Tomorrow's game was not just a game anymore. It was a fight for survival against a malevolent force that would stop at nothing to keep her family forever lost. How far was she willing to go in the name of love? Would she sacrifice everything or everyone to save them? The answer lingered on the edge of her consciousness as she plunged deep into the unknown. And behind her, the shadows smiled. The void swallowed Emily whole, a suffocating embrace wrapping around her. Darkness cocooned her, and an overwhelming sense of dread crept into her bones. She stood frozen, her mind racing, feeling as if the shadows were sneering at her helplessness. The whispers rose again, this time more sinister, pressing in closer. You can't hide from us. Join us. Stop it. She cried out, her voice fighting against the shadows, but doubt seeped into her resolve. She felt a chill creep through her, a sickening sensation that the shadows were circling closer, taking their time to savor her panic. Then, just as quickly as they pressed in, the whispers faded, replaced by an eerie silence. An awful stillness fell over the space, and it felt like the air itself held its breath. Emily strained her ears, praying for any sign of her children amid the oppressive quiet. Every tense second passed like an eternity, and just when she thought her heart would burst, she heard a muffled cry. "Mommy?" It was faint, but it was there. "Jake! Jake!" Emily shouted, her voice slicing through the dark like a beacon. She rushed forward, driven by the urgency of that small sound, and the shadows writhed in response, angry and threatening. They whipped past her like frigid winds, seeking to pull her back, to rip her away from hope. The chilling laughter echoed behind her again, mocking, infinite. "You can't save him." Simon's voice slithered through the shadows, smooth as silk yet rough with menace. "He belongs to us now." "No." Panic flooded her, forcing Emily to press on. She stumbled through the darkness, her heart thunderous in her chest. It bounded against her ribs, a desperate plea for her children as she fought the growing dread that threatened to consume her. Suddenly, she found something cold and metallic grazing her fingertips. It was smooth, and with a tug, light poured forth again, illuminating a twisted skeletal frame hovering just inches away. It was a doll. Its glassy eyes reflected her own terror back, its mouth warped into a ghastly grin. The laughter crescendoed, and Emily felt her stomach churn. "Leave me alone," she screamed, hurling the doll to the ground. It shattered into a million pieces, the delicate glass puncturing her ears like screams, mixing with the chaotic laughter. But the shadows didn't retreat. They circled tighter, and Emily's breath became shaky and shallow. She was losing grasp on her strength, the darkness squeezing her like a vice. And just when despair threatened to claim her, a soft light flickered far in the distance. "Mommy, help!" It was Jake again, a plea laced with sheer terror that pierced through the veil of shadows. "Hold on." Emily surged forward, chasing the flickering light. Each step felt like wading through molasses, as if the shadows tugged at her heels, whispering promises of despair. The laughter twisted, cutting her resolve like ice through a warm breeze. But she couldn't let it win. The warmth of love ignited inside her, pushing her forward. As the light grew stronger, she broke free from the suffocating darkness, but the sight before her brought her to a grinding halt. There, on the edge of the light's halo, stood her children. Jake and Lily, both staring at her with hollow eyes, their faces frozen in fear. They clutched each other tightly, shadows swirling around them like ominous tendrils. "No!" Emily cried, reaching out toward them. But the shadows wrapped around her arms with a chilling grasp. The joy of their reunion turned to panic as the swirling shadows thickened, shifting, morphing into grotesque figures with twisted smiles. "Join us," they hissed, their empty eyes mirroring the children's fright. The moment stretched, a fragile thread hanging between hope and despair. "Don't give in," Emily shouted, more to herself than to them. "I will save you." But with each word, The shadows tightened their grip, sucking the light away. She felt her strength fading, the edge of reality slipping through her fingers like sand. As she fought back against the dark, a sudden revelation gripped her heart. Somewhere, buried in the shadows, was a way to not only save her children but also to confront the darkness head-on. With a fierce determination, she prepared to face whatever awaited her. All at once, a deep growl resonated through the shadows, shaking the ground beneath her feet. Emily sensed the shadows recoiling, and in that moment of fear and hope, she realized she had to confront Simon. Would facing him finally end this nightmare, or would it mean her own demise? In the heart of that darkness, she prepared for the ultimate battle. As the ground churned beneath her, Emily steeled herself, ready for the truth that lay ahead. What performance awaited her in Simon's sinister theater? Emily's heart raced, the growl echoing through the hollow darkness like a thunderclap. She could hardly breathe as the shadows twisted tightly around her, like venomous vines eager to ensnare their prey. In the sweltering abyss, time seemed to drip away, seconds transformed into unending moments of swirling black. "Face me, Emily," Simon's voice hummed from the depths, a playful mockery that sent spikes of dread through her. "You think you can save them? Do you really believe you have the strength to fight the inevitable?" She clenched her fists, summoning every ounce of will. "This ends now." The scream astounded even her, but conviction surged, and she could feel the bond with her children igniting her spirit, burning brightly against the consuming darkness. "Foolish mother," Simon taunted, and the shadows twitched, forming grotesque figures that danced mockingly at the edges of her vision. They lunged forward, whispering promises of despair and imprisonment, each voice a serrated knife tearing at her resolve. "Let them go. They're not yours," Emily shouted, her voice cracked but fierce. She was no mere pawn. Clenching her teeth, she pushed through the storm of terror rippling at her mind. Each whisper was like icy nails digging into her skin, feeding off her fear. But the image of Jake and Lily, afraid yet unyielding, clung to her heart. With a roar, she forced herself into the veil of shadows, plunging deep to reach the core of Simon's realm. It was a swirling tempest of darkness, thrumming with its own hideous heartbeat. Before her, strange apparitions flickered like fireflies, ghostly memories trapped in Simon's web, souls lost, screaming silently for release. "Is this what you want?" Simon asked, appearing before her, his face a mask of twisted glee. Yet behind his smile lurked darkness, an ancient hunger. Power? The ability to control them? They could be yours forever if you embrace the shadows. Emily spat at his feet, defiance bolstering her courage. "I would rather die than live in your darkness." With a flick of his wrist, the shadows lunged again, but this time she was ready. Emily dug deep within herself, feeling the love for her children coiling inside like a tightly wound spring. Her arms shot out, and she cried, "Light, I summon you." Brilliant warmth surged forward, ripping through the darkness. The shadows screamed and retreated, shrinking back as the light expanded, illuminating the very depths of Simon's lair. Ghosts desperate for salvation rushed towards her, their faces shifting between anguish and hope. "Fool!" Simon shrieked, taking a step back as the light battled against the consuming void. "You think you can defeat what was born of despair?" In that moment, something within Emily shifted. She locked eyes with the fleeing shadows, the faces of lost souls staring back, yearning for release. A gut-wrenching instinct pulled her forward. "You're wrong, Simon. Love is stronger than your darkness." The tendrils of shadow quaked, as the light melted through their spindly forms. Whispers of desperation morphed into cries of liberation, and Emily could almost feel their sorrow mixing with her resolve. All at once, a surge of power emanated from her, enveloping her surroundings, flooding everything with unyielding illumination. The darkness howled away, twisting, pulling as if it couldn't handle her defiance. "No!" Simon roared, panic splintering his calm demeanor. Emily pushed through the light, aiming to reach her children, to pull them to safety, to break whatever grip held them in Simon's dread. As her fingertips grazed the edges of their darkness, she felt an icy tendril coil around her ankle, a last desperate attempt to drag her down. "You think you have one?" Simon's voice came in a frigid whisper, filled with venom. "This is only the beginning." With a determination fueled by a mother's love, she yanked her children closer, willing the light to consume all. Every ounce of fear, every wretched doubt, she transformed into a beacon, stronger than even her darkest nightmares. And then she was falling, sinking through dimensions of light and shadow, a vortex created by Simon's rage and her relentless love. As everything ripped apart around her, Emily's final thought echoed. What awaited her on the other side? Would this fight end in freedom or plunge her deeper into Simon's twisted grip? With a thunderous crash, reality shattered, leaving only a whisper of dread in the air. Emily gasped as the world around her warped, colors bleeding into one another until the brightness collapsed into dark frames. She landed heavily, knees hitting the ground with a jarring thud on cool grass, the last remnants of warmth slipping away beneath the icy grasp of an unyielding night. The air smelled of damp earth and something else, something rancid like decaying leaves. Distant echoes of soft laughter drifted through the trees, taunting her, reminding her of what she had fought so hard to reclaim. An overwhelming wave of anxiety surged through her. Where were Jake and Lily? Were they lost forever in Simon's cruel grasp? Or could they be nearby, waiting for her? "Jake! Lily!" she called out, voice trembling with fear. Silence engulfed her, heavy and suffocating. The shadows twisted around her, the same malicious shapes from before, but now they danced, reveling in her torment. She felt a chill creeping up her spine, too real to ignore. The laughter transformed, shifting to whispers that coiled around her like smoke, words made of poison. "Welcome, Emily," they hissed in unison. "Welcome to the void." Gripping the earth, she pushed herself to a standing position, heart pounding out a frenzied rhythm. An ancient oil lantern lit a path through the trees, the flickering flame casting ominous silhouettes that wriggled and multiplied before her eyes. She squinted, trying to pierce the darkness, but her instincts screamed at her to run. What had she walked into? What felt like a gust of wind brushed against her skin, heavy with malevolence, making Emily shudder. "Come back to us." The whispers beckoned, each syllable slithering into her consciousness. "No," she spat defiantly, determination hardening her resolve. She took a deep breath, trying to summon the light again, but it felt distant, like a forgotten memory. With dread pooling in her stomach, she pressed on toward the lantern, hoping it might reveal some hidden truth, some path forward. As she neared, the laughing voices converted into a single booming harmony that felt both alluring and grotesque. "Join us," they sung gently, and a splinter of terror coursed through her veins. Shadows shifted. Twisted limbs reached toward her, trying to weave a web of despair. She could feel the fear weigh her down. Suddenly, a piercing scream broke the illusion, reverberating through the trees, the unmistakable voice of her son. "Mom!" A surge of adrenaline shot through her. "Jake!" she screamed, rushing into the darkness where the sound had emanated. Her instincts kicked in, driven by maternal love. Another voice, Lily's soft but terrified, joined in. "Help us, Mommy!" The hooting echoes filled her ears, and Emily stumbled through the thick strands of darkness. The lantern flickered. With every step, its glow grew dimmer as the thick mist of shadows fought to reclaim their home. But she wouldn't let them. An urgent pounding echoed in her chest as the landscape shifted, revealing a twisted vision of what was once her home. A dilapidated version of her living room emerged, the walls stained and slumped, furniture turning to dust as if the shadows were feeding off their existence. "Help us!" The children cried out again, their voices merging into a cacophony that spiraled into a chilling embrace. Shadows whirled around the room, shrieked with malicious delight, their eyes gleaming with sickening hunger. "Stop!" Emily shouted, though her voice barely pierced through the terrifying ruckus, the shadows closing in, their fingers scraping against her skin like icy daggers. In that moment, she felt the light flickering back to life inside her, a flicker of hope igniting. Would love prevail again? Or was this merely Simon's cruel trick, dragging her deeper into the abyss? She took a step forward, every ounce of her strength pouring into a single thread of belief. But as she opened her mouth to summon the light, an overwhelming darkness surged toward her, enveloping her completely. And then, silence. What felt like an eternity passed in the choking void. Did she lose herself? Would she lose them too? Would love be enough? Then, a fierce whisper broke through the quiet, promising. This is only the beginning of your nightmare. What awaited her now? Would her love summon salvation? Or would it be the instrument of her ultimate despair? Emily floated in the void, a heavy silence pressing in from every side. Time felt fractured, each moment stretched impossibly thin, like a thread about to snap. The dim glow of the lantern faded from memory, leaving her in a darkness so profound it clutched at her chest. Fear gnawed at her thoughts until they became jagged edges, each sharp enough to cut deeper into her resolve. "Mom!" Jake's voice shimmered in the blackness, a ghostly echo that filled her with both hope and despair. "Lily!" she cried out, reaching for them in the darkness. But even as she called, she felt the very fabric of her courage fraying, whispers swirling again like a sinister wind. "Will you join them?" They chuckled, their laughter reverberating around her, mingling with the murmurs of her children. "Will you give in to the shadows?" "No." The word broke from her throat, raw and bloodied. "I won't give you anything." The shadows pulsed as she fought the encroaching darkness. Faces emerged briefly from the void, familiar yet twisted, memories of lost companionship smeared with malice. Friends, family, each face twisted with grief, eyes wide with betrayal, reminding her of what was at stake. "You must let go, Emily," they urged, their spectral hands outstretched like grim invitations to surrender. A wave of nausea washed over her. She could see them, Jake and Lily, at the edges of her mind, but Simon had woven a spell of fury and fear around her children. Their cries grew distant, muffled beneath the hungry laughter that surged through her every thought. Another scream punctured the air, this one sharp, full of desperation. "Mommy, help us! Hang on!" she yelled, drumming her heart back to life. The flicker of light inside her roared like a flame, refusing to be extinguished. She took a struggle-filled step, forcing her legs to move, one by one, against the relentless tide pulling her down. "Jake! Lily! I'm coming!" Just as she thought she had gained ground, the shadows lunged forward, wrapping icy fingers around her ankles, their grip like a vice. The whispers became a deafening roar, echoing in her ears. "Join us! Embrace the void!" The weight was unbearable now. The pressure was crushing. Breathing became an act of defiance, as if the mere act of inhalation was an affront to the ominous shadows surrounding her. And then she saw it. Beyond the oppressive darkness, a flicker of light emerged once more, a faint glow that pulsed with promise. Emily's heart thundered as she strained against the darkness, clawing at the air, scrambling toward the light. But with every inch gained, the grasp of dread tightened, wailing in frustration. Just as she reached for the light, a shadow lunged toward her, an amorphous form shooting through the darkness, its eyes burning with fiery malevolence. "You're too late," it hissed, lashing out with elongated, bony fingers. Emily recoiled, but caught a glimpse of what lay behind the shadow: her children, frantic and desperate, their faces pale, a mirror of her own terror. "Mommy!" they cried again, hands reaching out, grasping at nothing, and her heart shattered anew. Panic surged through her veins as the darkness twisted and churned. She could not lose them. Not now. Not ever. She surged forward with a newfound ferocity, gripping the tendrils of light, her hopes spiraling out like a desperate beacon in the night. And then, before she could breathe, a powerful force exploded within her, a warmth that exploded against the darkness. A light so brilliant it cut through despair, momentarily blinding her. But as she squinted against the brightness, she noticed something: movement. The shadows recoiled as if burned, wailing in anguish, but a part of them began to merge with the light. "No, not them." The voice ripped through the veil of hope. Simon's laughter echoed again, sinister and mocking. You think you can save them, Emily? They belong to me now. I'll fight. She screamed back, the light within her pulsating, creating a barrier against the darkness. They are mine. But with every heartbeat, the light flickered like a candle in the wind, and she could feel the shadows closing in, their malevolence wrapping around her throat like a noose. Mom, don't give up. The children's voices surged through her, igniting a final flame of hope. What was that shadow dancing just beyond the veil of light? Another form slinking forward, growing it couldn't be with all the strength she could muster. Emily pushed forward. No. But then she shuddered as another voice broke through, chilling her to the bone. Remember what I promised, Emily? This is just the beginning. As the light flickered, chaos erupted, and dread deepened. What awaited her on the other side of the storm? Would she save her children or lose herself in the dark? The answers loomed, but remained just out of reach, drawn into the heart of the shadows. Emily's heart raced as she clawed through the swirling darkness, summoning every ounce of strength she had left. With each pulse of light that burst through her, she felt the icy grip of despair loosening just a little. The flickering warmth was becoming a steady flame, fueled by love and desperation for her children. Mom! Help! Jake's voice came clearer now, slicing through the shadows like a spear. Determination surged within her, building a resolve she didn't know she was capable of. I'm coming! She cried out, shaking off the encroaching dread that whispered in the darkness. Each step felt like running through thick mud, but Emily pressed onwards, ignoring the piercing whispers that taunted her very being. As she blinked against the harsh light enveloping her, there was a shift, a sensation that something was fracturing in the air around her. A weak point in Simon's sinister structure. The realization struck. The shadows were unstable. Light! To the light! She forced out, picturing her children in her mind. Jake and Lily were there, their faces filled with hope, their laughter echoing through her heart. Reminding herself of their strength sparked a wild flame in her chest. She charged onward, the light intensifying, illuminating the vast void like a beacon against chaos. Join us, Emily! Simon's voice slithered into her mind, seductive and frightening. You could have it all if you abandon the light. Give in to the shadows, become one with your true self. A flash of anger ignited. No, I refuse. The shadows recoiled momentarily, the force of her conviction forming a protective barrier that blocked their icy tendrils. Jake! Lily! She called, with vision focused. I'm coming for you. Hold on. The walls of darkness contorted, shadows swirling higher. But Emily seized the moment, her determination crystallizing into an unbreakable will. She felt the light swell stronger, illuminating passages through the thick haze, pushing away the lurking shadows that growled in retaliation. Then she saw them, Jake and Lily, their faces gleaming with fear and a glimmer of hope. She stumbled toward them, arms outstretched, ready to wrap them in love and safety. But just as she reached out, Simon's voice hungrily filled the space. You'll never take them back, Emily. They are mine. With an eruption of laughter, the shadows spiraled, intent on snatching her children. Emily gritted her teeth, feeling the mix of sorrow and rage surging within her. You will not take my children from me. In that moment, something primal awakened within her, summoning all the love buried deep in her heart. She felt an energy surge unlike anything before, forming a barrier that pushed back against the shadows. The warmth flooded her veins, growing, igniting into an inferno fueled by fierce maternal love. Stay together. Hold on tight, she cried, her voice full of unwavering strength. With one powerful leap, she reached out, enclosing her children in her arms just as the shadows lunged to strike again. With love, there is power, she shouted, letting the light expand outward. As she clasped her children close, the shadows abruptly flared, recoiling and screeching in torment. The overwhelming brightness surrounded them, shielding them from the icy grasp of darkness. Emily pushed through the swirling energy, her very essence combining with her children's, solidifying their bond and igniting an even brighter spark. With a final burst of will, they surged forward through the darkness, light flooding every corner of the room, pushing away the shadows that had haunted them. It felt as if a dam had broken, releasing a cascade of hope. And in a blinding flash, the world shifted. Emily, Jake, and Lily tumbled into a grassy clearing, the Christmas frost dancing across the ground. The shadows behind them melted away like smoke, forever quenching Simon's dark grip. They were safe, released from the clutches of terror. Breathless, with tears streaming down her face, Emily held Jake and Lily close, their warmth igniting a flicker of joy within her. "I thought I lost you," she sobbed. Clinging tightly, moments of horrific memories begin to dissolve, replaced by the comfort of being together once more. Outside, the snowstorm that had raged turned into soft, quiet flakes that settled gently onto the ground, transforming the night into a beautiful winter wonderland. It felt like a new beginning, a lingering hope that perhaps they had overcome the curse imposed by the horrors of the Christmas nightmare. As the family embraced amidst the soft, glowing moonlight, a dark voice echoed faintly in the distance, a promise veiled in shadow. "This isn't over, Emily." But in that moment, she stood steadfast, safe in the warmth of her children. Whatever specter awaited them in the future, they would face it together, unbreakable and illuminated by love. "Let us go home," she whispered, and hand in hand, they walked forward into the promise of dawn. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that send chills down your spine. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and give us a boost. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this jaw-dropping ending. Let us hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. The true fans know how important your support is to keeping our stories alive.